Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
How would you feel about a new law that forces every company to pay their CEO no more than 20x what their lowest paid employee makes? All low-paying employees would work for a daughter corporation that doesn't belong to the mother corporation for the purposes of this law. Also, that daughter company is not an employer in the traditional sense, but a platform that connects gig economy entrepreneurs to exciting new opportunities. Edit, to all the 16-years telling me to just close the loopholes, if only it were that easy. Or exec salary would remain low but the RSU awards would be huge. Which is pretty much how it already works. The CEO would just take stock options because stock is where the money is, not income. Right? Why do you think all these CEOs take a dollar salary? Jeff Bezos boasted, published articles, and spread the information as far as he could that he only accepted a salary of about $100,000 from Amazon in one of his final years as CEO. I'm like, besides the obvious that he is being compensated in ways that are not W-2 income, he was already a multi-billionaire at that point. TF is $100,000 gonna do for him? CEO pay is kind of a capitalism red herring. The real problem isn't the CEO making 100 times their lowest paid employee, it's the equity holders who are worth 1 million times their lowest paid employee's annual salary. Thank you. The CEO is basically just the ship captain. They don't necessarily own the ship or pick their expeditions. I don't care what my boss gets paid, I just want to be content with the amount of money I'm getting paid. The idea behind this is also often to increase the wage of the employees so that CEO can be paid more. This implies that the reason employees are not paid more is because the company is paying the executives so much. In reality, capping executive compensation just means the salary budget gets cut, which enables either higher spending elsewhere or greater profits. How would you feel about a strictly enforced ban on, how do you feel about, posts in this sub? Reddit, how would you feel about all games on Steam being free and also a girl will come by and suck you off when you game? Quote. Most people in this thread and on Reddit don't seem to understand how executive compensation works. Executives are often paid through equity in the company. If the share price triples or a private company IPOs, then all of a sudden they get $30 million plus in a year. Most of the big billionaires that you see on TV like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, etc. are paid less than their average employee on paper. However, they own so much stock in the company that they are technically billionaires based on the number of assets they have. If the value of the company were to reduce zero overnight, they would cease to even be billionaires, assuming that they don't have liquid cash in international banks, which they probably do. Alternatively, when you hear, this billionaire made $20 billion last month, it is because the value of the share assets they have increased by that amount. They do not actually have that in their bank account, in most cases. Reddit has no idea how corporations function, what CEOs do, or how taxes work. It's hilariously absurd to see some of the things that people think will work, it's just not feasible. It seems to me that most people on Reddit think they work harder and do far more than any CEO. That companies don't even need a CEO, just really unhinged from reality. Yet they jerk themselves off about how smart they are. Just a bunch of kids and imbeciles with no idea of the real world. Not to mention, if they were to actually liquidate even a portion of their stock, the stock price in general would plummet, and we've seen it happen. When Elon cashed out 10% of his Tesla stock to purchase Twitter, it caused Tesla stock to drop 12% in value in one single day and lost $200 billion in value for shareholders. As a liberal, I strongly oppose. This will not fix the wealth gap. Same boat. Reddit has so weird ass takes on CEOs, not to mention the amount of loopholes around any system like this. Also, a cap on CEOs solves nothing, shareholders are the larger issue. How's shareholders a larger issue? Biggest shareholder of Apple is Vanguard, second biggest is BlackRock, both are fund managers that invest people's retirement money on their behalf. Your 401k, company pension, social security all benefit from Apple stock going up. Your retirement payout grows when Apple return more value to its shareholders. I'm a bit left of center and also agree. There are also employees that make a living wage whose CEOs make more than 20x, but the effectiveness of the CEO is part of the reason they're willing to pay a living wage and also why those employees have good job security. As a high earner, I do think we need a more progressive tax and also that we should be funding programs that help everyone. But blanket rules like a 20x limit aren't at all pragmatic. Lol, there are other employees in companies that are paid more than 20x the lowest paid employee. No, only the CEO makes money. Everyone else is paid minimum wage. Reddit. Okay, so say McDonald's pays $10 per hour to the lowest paid. 20x, that is $200 per hour. 40-hour week, 52 weeks per year equals $416,000. Ain't nobody going to run a global conglomerate for the same pay rate as a generic mid-level manager in San Fran or NYC. I would run McDonald's for $1, and I would be perfectly fine with that pay rate cause all my money is coming from my 100 meters in stock grants. But let's say I am a franchise owner and I have 10 of these restaurants. Is $416K too low? Maybe, but again, who cares? I will set my salary at $400K and then I will do a dividend from the corporation to the owners. Just happens that I own 100% of $500K. Making $900K while keeping my salary in the range. Business owners already do this to reduce Medicare taxes. Past history has shown that people will work around stuff like this. It's popular to dunk on CEOs, but if you really think the one guy who is responsible for a multinational multi-billion-dollar company with tens of thousands of employees only does 20x the work of a janitor, you're crazy. It's not the physical labor you elbow, it's the responsibility of making sure the tens of thousands of employees still have a business existing that they can work at, and making sure the business stays successful enough to not be taken over. Almost impossible to enforce, and it wouldn't really fix anything. Wages are set by the market, not the goodwill of management. People on Reddit don't seem to understand what market rate means. It's easy to look at CEOs and act like they don't do anything, but I guarantee if Op tried to be a CEO, the company would be under in short order. I previously worked at a Fortune 500 bank and had decent exposure to the CEO. Their life seemed miserable. They'd start emailing around 5 to 6 a.m. every day and be working until 10 p.m. or later almost every day. Plus probably 10 plus hours every weekend. He deserved every penny he got. I would think the person who dreamed up that law was more interested in seeking revenge rather than seeking a solution to their problems. This would be dumb, because most highly paid individuals at companies, e.g. CEOs, typically don't have high salaries. Rather, they are compensated extremely through equity, bonuses, and other means that aren't directly salary. A better solution would be something like more co-op ownership structures, where employees own the company and are thusly both responsible for success and the primary beneficiaries. A better solution would be something like more co-op ownership structures, where employees own the company and are thusly both responsible for success and the primary beneficiaries. Cooperatives can and already do exist though. Funnily enough, I don't think the op would be willing to put their money where their mouth is and form a co-op alongside other like-minded individuals, despite there seemingly being plenty of them, at least on Reddit. It'd make more than our CEO if this happened. This seems to be little more than a resentment-motivated policy. The CEOs typically aren't the super rich, they're merely the top tier of working people who still have to do work for their pay. The hyper rich are typically people who own stock in the company. For them, a law like this just means more money for the stockholders. Not completely wrong, but CEO pay has drastically risen over the years compared to inflation and other metrics. That was largely as a result of a different badly thought out resentment-motivated policy. Someone thought it would be a good idea to force companies to publish CEO pay as a way to discourage high CEO salaries. What actually happened was that it turned the CEO's salary into a very public signal of company health. Nobody wanted to imply they cheaped out and hired a low-skill cretin to be CEO when CEO choice can have such a big effect on the company. At the same time, the CEO is just one employee. A high wage for that one person is much cheaper than an extra few bucks for 100,000 low-level employees. So companies started competing to show off how much they were willing to pay to get the best rockstar CEOs, and CEO pay spiraled upwards. Moral of the story: don't trust resentment-motivated policy to turn out how you intend it to. True, but most CEOs don't work for some giant company pulling in billions. Which is what I think Op was really thinking about. Where I used to work, paying the CEO anywhere close to 20x would have bankrupted the company. Our lowest paid employees were good office, admin jobs. So what? My boss, CEO's salary doesn't affect me or my life. This is M14 and this is deep type stuff. What if the CEO is also the owner who put up his money to save the business? Because if she put in millions of cash, then you're capping their repayment. Yeah, not a good idea. Every business owner is a rich capitalist pig walking on the backs of the proletariat, typical Redditor. The reality is, there are thousands of small business owners that are incorporated, which makes them the CEO, president, and are the first ones to skip taking a check if that means paying their employees on time. They take all the financial risk, and they should also be able to reap the financial rewards if they succeed. This hypothetical is nowhere near the norm. LMFAO, oh come on. And the companies which could fit your hypothetical are small, and there wouldn't be such a gap between individuals. Seems like a silly law that would do literally zero good, and a reasonable amount of harm, lots of subcontracting to new legal entities. Against said law, I think you would ultimately see a decline in people starting companies. So, if a CEO earns $20 million a year, the tea lady and janitor must be paid $1 million a year. Sound like an absurd law? I'll get downvoted for this. But this is a super one-dimensional take that doesn't make any sense. I know Reddit loves to hate CEOs, but this disparity in pay and work exists everywhere, not just private businesses. Obviously, there are a lot of examples that are just insane, like when someone makes 500x what someone else. But there are many cases, I'd argue most cases, where the top executive in a private or public organization does do 20x more work than someone else. On top of tar, there's just a lot of nuance that OpsTake ignores. Some positions require extremely niche and expensive educations. Some positions have a lot of liability. Some work are on call 24/7. Of course, those positions need to be compensated way more than the lowest employee. Should they be paid 1000x more? Hell no. But definitely a lot of cases they do more than 20x the work. Again, this isn't a private market issue. Go look at big government agencies, cities, counties, universities. I say big because they will recruit top-level top talent. I absolutely guarantee you that the top-earning official earns more than 20x what the absolute lowest paid employee. And that's for a reason. And that's cause I'm not even getting into the simple market demand and supply of top-level employees. Where top-level lawyers, accountants, etc. are more than 20x harder to find than the lowest-level employees. It's simple supply and demand. TLDR, 20x is too low. In most cases, the top employee brings in more than 20x what the lowest employee does. OP also forgot commission-based worker. In industrial equipment sales, a lot of salesmen actually makes more than their CEO due to commission. Does OP want to cap these worker as well?